Hello. Hey everybody, Matthew from therighttrader.com. Today we're going to be talking about the US stock market, S&P 500. We're also going to be covering Tesla, Apple, and Alibaba. As per usual, we like to give a minute or two a chance for everybody to join the stream live. And by the way, you can always follow me on Twitter to get updates on when I post these live streams. So make sure to follow me there as well. And don't forget to turn on your bell notifications on this channel to never miss these live streams. With that being said, we're going to jump right into this. And we're going to be starting off with a look at the S&P 500. Now, I know that my channel has been mostly focusing on crypto. And of course, there's still going to be many crypto videos. But please keep in mind this channel is for both cryptos and stocks, and the two assets are actually very closely correlated. You can look up graphs on this, but they're extremely correlated, so there's no reason for me to cover one and not the other, especially when there's so much going on with stocks right now. So I just wanted to pull up some of the news here and show you. First off, we just finished the week. We're Friday right now, and you know, it's been absolutely disastrous week for the US stock market. Okay, so for one, you can see that in terms of the actual indices, you know, we've dropped over 1.5% across the board here in just the last day. So this was a major drop. Okay, and when you get this level of drop, you know, basically it tends to just tank pretty much all stocks out there. So like I said, today we're going to be focusing on Tesla, Apple, Alibaba, but as per usual, if you have any other specific stocks you want me to cover, just go ahead and drop a comment down below and I'll gladly take a look at it. So that's what I'm here for. I'm here to answer your questions and help you out with the stream, of course. But with that being said, let's jump right into what the actual S&P 500 is doing. So first off, you know, in terms of just the last week here, you know, we have fallen substantially. You know, we are just finishing up on 4 pretty big red candles in a row. And, you know, even if we look a few days before that, right, the past week, pretty much, we have fallen over 8%. So that is pretty major for the S&P 500. Keep in mind, there's $35 trillion in the S&P 500. So when you get a drop like that, of that size, it's a pretty big deal. And welcome to our 6 viewers. We're covering the stock market here. We're going to be covering more specifically Tesla, Alibaba, and Apple, but I'm just starting off the live stream with the S&P 500, which has now dropped over 8% in the last week. However, even though this was a pretty ugly drop, I am remaining hopeful that we will get a pretty strong bounce pretty soon here. One of the reasons for that is you can see that this is a perfect double bottom area. So I'll go ahead and mark this out. If you like these stock market live streams as well, on top of the cryptocurrency live streams, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on bell notifications. Also, don't forget to like the video. Don't be shy. Drop your comments in the comment section down below. I'm here to answer your questions, and just in a second we'll be hopping over to Tesla, Apple, and Alibaba, 3 major stocks in the US stock market. Of course, Alibaba is a Chinese company, so there's some different dynamics there, but that's also something that we're going to be talking about to make sure you have the best idea of what's happening with the stock market. So what I just drew out here on the S&P 500 is the actual double bottom formation that we're seeing here. Okay, so this just basically completed today. If I zoom in even a little bit more, you'll see that our most recent candlestick that just formed today had a very long lower wick. Okay, that means that buyers bought up those prices pretty quickly here, and in fact we are currently, if we get a green day on Monday, we are actually going to be putting in a higher low. So that'll be the potentially the very beginning of a slight uptrend, but more importantly, right, kind of confirmation of a double bottom, at least for now. Okay, you'll also see here that I drew in green these little circles these are the gaps that we need to fill above. Okay, so we have one around $405 and then another one even higher around $420. These will likely need to be filled at some point or another, especially with the S&P 500. So right now I'm on the SPY ETF, by the way, which tracks the S&P 500. And also, mind you, we just went oversold today. So if we look back historically, you know, the S&P 500 really is pretty rarely oversold, and whenever it is, it's typically great buying opportunities, right? As can be seen back here and of course back here, which I believe this was the COVID drop. So with that being said, okay, we can see now that we have a good opportunity to get a bounce here. Now we need to be careful because, you know, the markets are extremely volatile and rough right now. Okay, so, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some kind of panic drop a little bit lower again. That could totally happen based on how the market is acting. But right now, looking at the S&P chart, where we have a perfect double bottom, textbook double bottom, okay, and this is something that I definitely cover in my technical analysis master course. So if you're interested in learning more about technical analysis trading, I'm not shilling you this course, but it's less than $20 and comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. You can literally try it completely risk-free and get your money back if you're not satisfied. That's how confident I am that you'll like it, just like the rest of our 240 students. And that's a one-time payment as well of less than 20 bucks. So you won't get a better deal than that. Now, with that being said, let's start moving over to our individual stocks. Of course, I'll probably be updating you more often on the US stock market, you know, the S&P 500, etc., etc., etc. But right now we're staying focused on the S&P 500 and then these three stocks for today. And of course, we'll be looking at more of these stocks in just a second here. So I'm going to go ahead and bounce over to Tesla to start off our individual stock technical analysis here. And let me go ahead and clean up this chart because this was much older drawings. So first off, let me start off by saying for Tesla specifically here individually, Tesla has been one of the strongest performing stocks. Okay. Is there any reason for that specifically? Not necessarily, or at least not from what I've seen personally. However, okay, the one main thing that made Tesla so much stronger than many other stocks out there is probably just its fan base. Okay, there's a pretty devout fan base of Tesla stockholders that have been basically diamond handsing Tesla throughout this sort of bear market that we're in. And as you can see here, right, compared to what I just drew on the S&P 500, taking about a week in the past, Tesla did actually get a big drop today, but before today it actually had fallen less than the S&P 500. So you know, and overall, even compared to a lot of other stocks, it's still pretty range bound right now. So you know, I would ignore maybe what's above here, because right now, unless we get back above $315, it's not going to be relevant. And also for now, you can also not pay too much attention to this bottom area. However, okay, this is the key moment. Whichever side we break, and I don't think this is going to take multiple attempts, whichever side we break on, okay, I'm pretty confident that we're going to see a either break out or break down. So if we see Tesla, you know, basically maybe fall any bit lower than its gap fill over here, because maybe it'll want to come down and test that gap at $250. So let's say it ends up going below $250. I'll put in a little support level there. I think we're going to go heading lower down towards $200. With that being said, Tesla, since it does have a lot of strength overall, it could end up being range bound. And of course, if there's going to be any type of breakout, just look for $315. It's pretty straightforward there. I don't think that it's the most likely thing, just because Tesla has been holding up a lot, and it will probably need to catch up to other stocks in dropping back down a bit. And by the way, I just want to say thank you to all our live viewers here. We have 8 live viewers. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us on the stream. We already covered the S&P 500 earlier in this video, and we're now digging into the Tesla chart. I thank you all so much for joining live stream. We're currently at a peak of 12 live viewers, so welcome everybody. We're covering Tesla. We haven't covered Apple and Alibaba yet. We're talking about, you know, the stock market drop, which is basically the bear market that we've been seeing, for one, and for two, right, just a conglomerate of things that have been causing further downside. You know, tech stocks have been selling off heavily. The Nasdaq has been the worst performer out of the big 3 indexes. And of course, there's just a huge amount of macroeconomic fear, right? With Europe, with Asia. There's just so much stuff going on. And of course, inflation and the rate hike that we saw this week of a 0.75% increase has caused further downside in the markets. However, just to quickly go back to the S&P 500 for all our new viewers here. And like I said, welcome everybody. If you haven't joined us before, make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on those bell notifications, and support the stream by giving this video a like. It's completely free for you, so why not support the channel by giving a like? And of course, if you want to support even more, you can always go ahead and give me a super chat, which would be greatly appreciated. Now, what I just talked about here is, although we have fallen quite a bit, right, about 8% this week, and of course, since we tested the 200 moving average, we have fallen over 15% for the S&P. As far as off the highs, which I should have covered earlier, we are already down 25%. So that's a pretty serious drop for the stock market. However, the one bit of bullish sign that we have here is the fact that we're coming up on big support, and we're actually looking at a potential double bottom formation that I drew out with these circles here, and we're also becoming oversold on the RSI. The viewers are absolutely skyrocketing, which is amazing. Huge thank you for all the support, everybody. And go ahead, support the stream by hitting that like button and subscribing if you haven't already. Let's move back over to Tesla here. I also want to mention that right now, today, I'm focusing in on Tesla, Alibaba, a few other stocks like that. But please remember, this is an interactive live stream. You could go ahead, drop your comments in the comment section down below. In fact, I want to see your comments, and you know, that will help me talk about any additional stocks that you want me to cover during this video. If you want me to quick look at the gold chart, for example, or any other stock out there, Coinbase, whatever, you can let me know in the comment section down below. That's what I'm here for. That's what these live streams are here for. It's to interact with all of you. And of course, definitely share your opinion with us on the market. Do you think we're going to see more downside, or do you think we can get a bounce here? I am expecting, when we do get the bounce, it to be a pretty strong bounce, hopefully, based on how much we fell. But since there's so much fears about recession and a bear market, we can't, you know, be 100% certain that that's going to happen just yet. We need to get a confirmational candlestick or two, and then hopefully we can get at least somewhat of a bounce. Now, like I was saying for Tesla, Tesla has not fallen as drastically, right? So it's not oversold on the RSI. That's one big difference. And it's very range bound, right? It's kind of in this tight range between 270 and 315. So what I mentioned, right, is this could be a very good thing, but it could also mean that it may have to catch up a bit to how much other stocks have fallen. And we're looking at this little gap here on the chart at $250. Maybe we'll come back down here, test that, and then come right back into this range. That would be actually a pretty ideal situation. However, what is completely possible is that we would not hold $250 and fall more towards $200. So any break of $250 would probably push us lower, but it has a decent chance of also staying range bound considering the support and strength that Tesla as a stock has. Now we're going to move over to Apple. Apple is a pretty clear stock to talk about. It's very similar to the S&P 500 in a way. In fact, it tends to outperform the S&P 500. It's pretty much the strongest stock in existence, the strongest stock in the US stock market. And of course, we're talking about Apple stock here, which is currently trading right at $150 flat pretty much. Now, a couple interesting things as well to talk about. So with Apple, like I said, you're getting kind of the analysis. I made sure to pick three very different stocks, right? Tesla, a bit more of a hype stock, a bit more of a growth stock. Apple, which is pretty straightforward, right? It's Apple. It's one of the best performers of all time, very steady stock. And then a different stock, Alibaba, still kind of a tech stock, but more globally, of course, Chinese company that has a few different dynamics. How is that performing? Okay, how might all those Chinese stocks perform? Because there's a lot of them, and a bounce on those could be absolutely huge. Okay, and we got our first comment here of the day from Adiran Dak Schiller, saying, good analysis, man. Thank you so much. I never saw your comment before. You may be a viewer who's more interested in the stock market and less in cryptos. If that's the case, no worries. This channel is for you as well. So make sure and hit that subscribe button and join us on our live streams. Okay, I'm going to start doing these stock market live streams more, as well as cryptocurrency live streams and videos on both of those things. So hit that subscribe button. You're on the best channel on YouTube for this type of stuff, and you don't want to be missing out on this valuable information. So subscribe and turn on those bell notifications. Here, as we're looking into Apple stock, okay, looking just in the last 3 days, it did fall decently here. And if we look at the last, doing the math here, since the beginning of the week, basically, okay, look at this. We fell basically 3%, okay? At the peak, we fell about 4.5%, if that. So that's about half of what the actual S&P 500 fell. And that's the benefit and the power that you get with holding Apple stock, okay? A couple other interesting things with Apple stock chart. Now, we do have a pretty big gap open down lower, okay? This is all the way down at $100. Is that gap going to get filled or not? Of course, no way to know. That's quite a bit lower than where we're at now. You know, most of these stock market gaps get filled, but this is Apple stock we're talking about here. So that would be a 35% drop on Apple stock. It would probably be a very similar drop for the S&P 500, maybe even a little bit more for the S&P 500. So it's not the most likely thing, but I should point it out since we're doing this analysis. With that being said, unlike, you know, what we just saw with the S&P 500, where there's gaps a bit everywhere, the Apple stock chart is showing that we have pretty much the only close gap is a bit higher, so that's bullish, and that's at around $170. Okay, so we're going to be looking at that level as well for being an important level. So now you kind of see this this wider range that we may be trading in the next few months, right? Basically between $100 and $171, and of course all of this depends on how strong the market is. Okay, we may see these stocks perform better than expected, hold up, or they could actually end up being quite weak. So we need to look at these different types of stocks to kind of see what is the most likely scenario here, what is the most likely outcome. But now you have an idea of the range, right? $100 to $171. Of course, right now we're still in the higher part of this range, so we can't get too bearish yet. And it's been Apple has been holding up amazingly well. And like I said, right, it's looking like we could get a bounce on the actual S&P 500. Now we're not oversold on Apple. However, what we do have in similarity with the S&P 500 chart that I just drew, okay, and this is why you're going to want to subscribe to this channel, because you're not going to find these type of details anywhere else. I have over you know, I don't even know how many years of technical analysis experience. I mean, I've been doing it since probably about 10 years ago. And, you know, I started this channel back in 2017. So you're getting a huge amount of experience, and I'll draw out for you right here what I'm talking about. Okay. We have pretty much, it's a little bit different, but it's basically the exact same double bottom formation here on Apple stock. Okay. So we have two long lower wicks. Buyers bought up those prices below $150. And on top of that, okay, we see the histogram and the MACD starting to flatten out. But more importantly, we have this exact replicated copy of what we're seeing on the S&P 500, right? Which is this very bullish double bottom pattern with those long lower wicks, meaning buyers are buying up those prices, not really letting it fall below that. So yes, we could totally, you know, go all the way back up in this range, test this level, maybe start trading in this range, and we could go from there, right? But let's just say we end up getting a pretty significant bounce, maybe coming up and closing that level. That's going to be almost about a 15% bounce. Okay, so could be a very, very interesting move here for Apple. There's not that much stuff putting pressure on the price lower for now in terms of the technicals. Okay, why am I saying that? Because we don't have any gaps immediately below us, and if we pay attention to the Bollinger Band, it might be hard for you to see here. These are these slight blue lines both at the top and the bottom. That's coming up and hugging our support level at $148. Okay, so we have basically 3 levels of support that are holding the price now above $150. We have the double bottom, okay, that's one. We have the horizontal support level at this psychological level of $150, and we have now as well our lower Bollinger Band that's really flattening out and causing a barrier for the price to fall lower. Okay, so at this point, right, although the stock market has fallen, even Apple a bit, we're starting to see signs where how much can these huge market cap stocks really drop in a week or two, right? And typically, at least historically, it hasn't been that much. Okay, I also want you to remember that most bear markets, most recessions barely even last a year. Okay, they typically start bouncing actually within a year. So that's also something to keep in mind. And huge thank you to our live 9 viewers. Of course, share this video with your friends if you have anybody else who's interested in stocks and crypto who may enjoy this live stream. I want to bounce back quickly to the S&P. So you saw what I just talked about here with the double bottom formation on Apple stock. I'm now going to go ahead and slide back to our S&P 500 chart on the SPY ETF, and guess what? You have this same pattern. Of course, the amount of days here is not the same between Apple and the S&P. The S&P 500 has actually been way more volatile than Apple stock, okay? So that is a difference to keep in mind, but you can see that we're having that same double bottom formation and pretty much the exact same candlestick on the day, which is what I would consider a pretty bullish candlestick here. Now we have another comment from Adirondack, and by the way, if you're watching this video, you want me to cover any other stocks during this live stream, that's what I'm here for. So don't be shy, leave us a comment, let me know what you want me to cover. Because if no one recommends any other stocks, then I'll just be covering, you know, the S&P 500, Tesla, Apple, and Alibaba, which we haven't covered yet. But if you want me to cover any other stocks, the NASDAQ or whatever, I'll gladly do so. That's not a problem for me. That's what I'm here for. And of course, support this live stream by hitting that like button, subscribing if you haven't already, by turning on those bell notifications as well. And you can always follow me on Twitter for live stock and cryptocurrency market insights. And as well, don't forget my technical analysis master course, where I talk and I teach about these different technical analysis patterns, all covered in 15 video lessons and more. You know, you have 2.5 hours of on-demand video, a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not satisfied, and it's less than $20. You're not going to find pretty much any other financial courses, you know, for this price. And keep in mind, none of this is financial advice. It's just my years of experience put together. Now, last stock we're going to be covering from now, unless someone recommends a specific stock they want me to cover, which, like I said, don't hesitate, right? Whether that might be a stock like Coinbase, any other stocks, bigger or smaller, it's fine. I will cover it. So let me know. But right now we're going to move over to our third stock that I want to take a look at, and this is going to be Alibaba Chart. Now, don't pay too much attention to all these drawings here. That was in the past. You know, of course, we lost our longer term uptrend on Alibaba, and since then, it's been a stock that has taken a serious hit. Okay, so in terms of the all-time high there, around $320, we're fully down pretty much 75% on the dot. Okay, we had multiple times here where we ended up being oversold. I had actually drawn these out, but guess what? None of these actually ended up being true bounces. Actually, our last one was the only serious bounce, sort of. But what's interesting here is, you know, these did not actually end up being the bottom. Why is that? Because we were in this bear market, in this recession, okay, if that's what you want to call it. So when you see these type of patterns play out, you know, just because it's oversold doesn't mean that we're going to get a huge bounce or anything. Yes, we may get a short-term bounce, but it may not last, right? We may continue downtrending. And in fact, I had drawn it out here, right? We have our downtrend line in purple. So I'll go ahead and give this chart a little cleanup here. We can reset it and talk about what's going on. First off, let me say, very similar to what we just talked about for the S&P 500 and for Apple stock, okay? Alibaba has, like I said, a couple interesting bottom formations as well. So this stock is a bit different, right? It has to do also with how the Chinese economy is going, relationships between the US and China. So there's different factors. We have a huge amount of gaps to fill on the chart, right? And the highest one being back to the near the all-time highs at $305. I'm just drawing these out just to show you the potential upside. And by the way, just so I'm not being biased here, this is the only stock out of the 3 that I own. So I am actually, I do have calls in Alibaba. These are out for 2025. So I just wanted to, you know, give that disclaimer here. But, you know, I bought it because I like this upside, right? I like the fact that there's so many open gaps above, even back to the all-time highs, where this could be about a 286, even, you know, 300% price move on a major stock like this, multi-$100 billion stock. And, you know, I know a lot of people are a lot of retail investors are pretty interested in this stock as well. So I thought it'd be a good stock to cover. Also, in terms of kind of bottoming patterns and whatnot, we have here what could be, okay, might be a little bit early to tell just yet. We'll have to see how the stock market acts next week. But I also want to mention that we closed a gap. It's actually not really, we'd already kind of closed it, but we kind of retested an important level here that maybe we were trying to clear out. However, we have basically right now a complete potential for a triple bottom formation here. Okay, so we saw that on the S&P 500 and on Tesla stock, on Apple stock, there was a bit of a double bottom formation. And here, right, we have a actual triple bottom, as can be seen by these 3 orange circles that I just put on the chart. Okay, so you know, it was a weaker than both of course the S&P 500 and Apple, which is why we have 3 bottoms instead of 2. But a triple bottom is absolutely an opportunity to bounce just as strong. And we also have a little gap open here in terms of the chart that happened today. Why do I like this? Because you know, this is a perfect setup for a green day on Monday and potentially further green days the rest of next week, okay, which is really what we want to be seeing after so much volatility and downside. Okay, now Alibaba was a stock that definitely in the last week, okay, underperformed the S&P 500 by quite a bit, right? This is the weakest stock that we covered out of the 3 and out of the S&P 500, dropping almost 12%. And keep in mind, like I said, this is a multi-$100 billion market cap stock. So that's $10-20 billion, right? Thrown out the window when that happens. So that's no joke, but also you need to be realistic and think, how much can a stock like this drop in a short amount of time like that before getting a bounce? Okay. A lot of big investors are into this stock. I believe Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett. You know, this is a very much of a stock that banks and institutions will probably buy up when the next bull market comes around. And you know, that is why I position myself with calls. But right, even that aside, and by the way, there was a gap that we ended up closing here on the chart, this gap right over here. So yes, in fact, as you can see how accurate analysis, technical analysis tends to be, especially for stocks. Okay, we had this open gap here, we had not closed it, we came close, but we hadn't closed it. Guess what? This last move in the last 3-4 days flushed us out and managed to close our gap that we had here. At this point, right, we don't really have any other gaps ahead. So you know, it seems like we may have one tiny one over here, but we basically cleaned out most of the gaps that we have. And let me just go ahead and zoom in here to see if this is actually, yes, this is a little gap here. Now, of course, not every single gap fills, so maybe this one will not, maybe it will, right? That's down at $63. But okay, for the most part here in the shorter term, at least, we closed out all our gaps. We only have mostly gaps ahead. And by the way, kind of risk reward wise, we have one gap below and we have a bunch of gaps above. So that's also something to keep in mind. Now, as far as this triple bottom formation, makes me quite bullish for a bounce, you know, into next week. How high may we go on that bounce? We'll have to see. Okay, there is a lot of resistance on Alibaba stock. That's something to be aware of. We have a lot of resistance around 93, 95, $97, of course $100, 105. There's a lot of resistance. Okay, but we're also looking at this level here of $120 because that is, if I'm not mistaken over here, the next open gap to fill to the upside. Okay, and that is also a very nice opportunity for a pretty serious bounce. That's about a 50% plus bounce on a major stock like that. So that is why I'm kind of bullish on Alibaba, and same for Tesla and Apple and the S&P 500. I think we're going to get a bounce next week. I think the bleeding has to slow down realistically. Okay. Now, if I go back here, I just want to do one last recap. And also, like I said, right, if you want me to cover any other stocks or you want to mention your opinion on the market, you know, both whether you think you're bearish or you know, bullish, let me know in the comment section down below, because I'll gladly cover the stock before the end of this live stream. But we're going to do one quick last recap here, and also have a comment from Adirondack Schiller saying Coinbase stock would be cool to take a look at. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that as well before we finish up the live stream. But just to recap the stocks that we talked about today, we got this triple bottom formation on Alibaba. For Tesla, however, since it held up pretty well, it's hard to say if it's going to stay range bound or if it may want to come back and test this $250 level. However, it does have a lot of support at $270. And going to Apple and the S&P, here you're going to see kind of what we had with Alibaba, just in stronger version. Okay, so more shorter term and a double bottom, clean double bottom with great wicks to the upside. And we can see that replicated as well on the S&P 500, of course, Apple being the strongest out of all of this bunch. Okay, S&P 500 now officially oversold. We can go over to the weekly time frame and see where we are. We are not oversold on the weekly, however, but we are decently low, below around near the 35 line. So that has been also a typical bounce area. We could fall a bit lower, right? That could happen. But right now we're near this 200-day moving average and on this this several levels of support that we just talked about. Okay, and we'll go ahead and take a look at Coinbase stock. Of course, Coinbase stock is a tech stock, right? It's in the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq has been one of the worst performing indexes, so as such, Coinbase stock has also taken you know, a bit of a hit as well. And I'm just putting in our downtrend line. So here we have a few things going on. We have this downtrend line, which we came nowhere near to testing, okay? But we have our shorter term downtrend line, which we did actually break out of, okay? So we have a couple things going on here. I should actually move over to the daily chart. This might make things a bit more clear. But basically, we stopped downtrending on Coinbase stock. That doesn't mean that we've been super, you know, steady yet, but we stopped downtrending. We broke out of the downtrend and we have been pretty much holding up since, okay? You can also see that we have this nice little horizontal support level put in right around $50, so right around that psychological resistance as well. I will warn, we tested this level quite a lot of times. If we come back and test it, the more times we test it, the more likely we are to actually see a loss of that support level, okay? And that would mean, of course, a lot further downside for Coinbase stock if we were to lose that $50 support level. Right now, though, I don't necessarily think that's going to happen based on the fact that I am expecting a bounce in the market. And on top of that, okay, not only that, but we can also talk about the fact that Coinbase stock, unlike most of the stocks that we just looked at, has no lower gaps ahead. Sorry, I took a bit of a water break. So that's one less thing to worry about, okay? It doesn't have any lower gaps to close. We closed out all our gaps that were below us. And I'm looking here above to see if we have any gaps. So it looks like we have one little gap at $176. This just shows you the amount of upside that's possible on some of these stocks, right? So for Coinbase stock, just getting there is 180% gain. If we're to go back to our all-time highs, you know, we're talking about a 600% plus increase on Coinbase, okay? Literally Coinbase stock. So the opportunity is absolutely there. Keep in mind, cryptos have not been the strongest. You know, we can go ahead and refresh cryptos real quick. You know, they're not really managing to get any type of substantial bounce. Bitcoin and ETH still holding up above their support level. So like I said, if next week we get a nice stock market pump, we'll probably see cryptos bounce, and Coinbase can bounce very quickly, okay? In fact, when we kind of reached our bottom here, we moved up 100%, okay? Very quickly. In about 10 days, we moved out higher, over 100%. So, you know, the good thing with that is we've seen the strength as well, the hidden strength that's possible with Coinbase stock, right? Even at these suppressed prices. And you can see here, we already bounced about 40% from the lows, even where we are at now. At the peak, we're about 160% bounce. So yes, you know, if cryptos recover, if ETH, etc., go back to all-time highs, Coinbase stock will probably go back to its all-time highs. That's a 600% plus gain, okay? And it could even go higher than that in the long term. So huge opportunity here on Coinbase stock. And I just mentioned the open gap that we have here at $176. Guess what? We have another open gap. These are very small gaps, but they're gaps nonetheless. We have another one up here at around $220, and then we don't have one above that. So these are kind of our two next upside targets. If the market starts kicking back up higher, I can go ahead and draw these out with yellow lines. And by the way, if you appreciate these very detailed technical analysis videos, and I honestly don't think that you're going to find this level of content anywhere else on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, turn on those bell notifications, and make sure to support the live stream, which you're getting free of charge. Make sure to support it by hitting that like button. If you want to support even more with a super chat, I'd be greatly appreciative. And of course, you can always follow me on Twitter or check out my technical analysis master course, link at the top of the description, and it comes with a 30-day money back guarantee, so you literally can try it 100% risk free and see if you're satisfied or not. It's less than 20 bucks anyways, so I don't see why you wouldn't give it a try. And you can see all the ratings from the students here, their comments, whatnot. 4.2 out of 5 stars. So great ratings across the board here, and over 240 students. I think that speaks for itself. And with that being said, I'm just taking a last little look at our comments here. Thank you for everybody who stayed throughout the stream, and definitely it's not too late to drop a comment if there's any other stocks you want me to cover. But Adder Dak is saying, how about the total market cap of crypto? It seems to be hovering around the $1 trillion mark. I'll talk about that more during my crypto live streams, but you know, yes, it is hovering around you know, $1 trillion. It's been a little bit below that more recently in the last week or two, so we'll see if it holds or not. But you know, we're waiting for either the confirmation of a bounce or a slip lower, okay, which is why I talked about all these levels here for stocks as well, and of course for crypto. But we'll see if I'm correct. I do think that next week we will indeed be getting a green week in the stock market. I could even see a couple stocks bouncing substantially, okay, and really surprising most people. So that's where I'm kind of setting my targets. You know, we saw with Apple and the S&P 500, if I quickly bounce back over there, how they are pretty much perfectly set right now with their double bottom formations and their gaps that they still have higher to get that bounce next week, maybe even the week after that. And you know, these are pretty serious bounces, okay? This is about a 15% bounce potential for the S&P. You can imagine that any higher beta tech stocks could go 30-50% plus gains with a bounce that high, okay? At that point, we'll have to see if we break out above the 200-day moving average, which is this red line right here. No way to know just yet if that's going to happen, but if we do, right, maybe we will have avoided the continuation of the downside for the time being. That has yet to be seen, though. We still have to get up there. So just pay attention to our, of course, support levels, $363 for the S&P 500. And if you missed any of the stocks that I talked about in this video, or when I covered the S&P 500 in more details, you can, of course, rewatch it when the video is re-uploaded. And by the way, just as a recap, we covered Apple, Tesla, Alibaba, and Coinbase Stock. We covered all of those after we covered the S&P 500 at the beginning of this video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I really appreciate the support. Definitely don't hesitate to check out the links in the description below, master course, the Twitter, etc. And you know, you can always support the stream before leaving by hitting that thumbs up button and subscribing. Turn on those bell notifications if you haven't already. That's your opportunity to stay updated live whenever I post and not miss out on this valuable premium content here that I don't think you're going to get this level of technical analysis anywhere else on YouTube. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really appreciated spending some time here today with you. It's the end of the week, so have a good weekend, everybody. And of course, I'll be joining you back Monday, potentially for stocks, and probably later tonight or this weekend for cryptos, okay? Which I know you all love, of course. And with that being said, I'll be saying goodbye for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Stay safe, everybody.